Have you ever been introduced to a friend of a friend and actually had it go well? I've been introduced to dozens and dozens of people, maybe even hundreds at this point, with the promise that, oh, you two are going to hit it off, only to realize soon after meeting that person that I have literally nothing in common with them. Those are awkward. And I've started giving disclaimers before these intros that I'm not always the easiest guy to get along with. I do have a handful of examples of a cold intro going very well, many of which I've done podcasts with in the past. Today's guest is Zack Ezer, and he's one of those examples. Zack is a Texan, a family man, a man of faith, and of strong convictions. I expect this won't be the last time we visit. I hope you'll enjoy this first conversation with Zack Ezer. I don't know if you had this experience, but on occasion, I'll meet somebody and am pretty instantly convinced, like, that's a guy I'm going to know.
Yeah.
You have that same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't happen often, and it's usually an introduction from somebody else that I already have that kind of relationship with.
Yep.
But when it happens, it's noteworthy.
Well, I think birds of a feather.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And coming from Will, if he's your buddy, then you're my buddy.
Will's a good filtering mechanism for people.
Yeah.
He's so easygoing.
Yeah.
But he's also, I would say, unapologetic about, like, not everybody's people.
I mean, he's just himself. So that's, that's what him and Chris, the three of us, went to A&M Galveston together. And, like you said, you just know people that they're going to be your friends. And
yeah.
Those two for sure.
I don't know Chris.
The three of us were kind of buddies, and Chris and Willie are best friends. They were best men in each other's weddings.
Oh, really?
Or the best man in each other's weddings. And they live up in DFW. Chris and Tina are not that far from Willie and Cassie.
I gotcha.
And so, yeah, we're actually going to see them Father's Day weekend up in Granbury.
Has he always gone by Willie?
Yes, but then in college it changed to Will a little bit. So
he tried to professional it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's in the state of Texas. You better be a real human if you're going to go by Willie.
Yeah,
that's kind of sacred ground to tread on.
That's right.
But he encompasses it well.
Yeah.
To your point, he's the same guy in a professional environment that he is sitting around a campfire afterwards.
Yeah.
I've never seen him be otherwise. He's always the same dude.
The same dude. And he's been the same for I guess now it's 21 years that
you've known him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, to that point of, like, recognizing your people, that's the common thread amongst all of who I would consider to be in my people in that category. Because they're all very much the same person, no matter what environment you put them in. They're conscientious. They're not trying to be controversial for the sake of it, but they also have opinions that they're willing to share with you, and they'll tell you the truth. And, they don't beat around bushes.
And it's funny. It's, I was just telling someone this last week that my grandpa and my pawpaw came from two different worlds. My grandpa was German and very successful at business, and then lost everything. And then my pawpaw was Cajun and owned a muffler shop. They were a little bit more Blue Dog Democrat. But both of them said, hey, do what you say what you mean. If you're going to do something, do it right the first time so you don't have to do it again. So two different worlds, but the same thread that ran between the two of them. And I think that's the same for when you meet someone and you just know that they're your friend. There's that common thread. Yeah.
In your friend group or in that group of people, are they all of one political persuasion, or are they varied?
No, they vary.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And the things that you're talking about, those common characteristics exist amongst all of them.
Right. And I think that's the thing that, gets lost today is there's a whole lot more in common than there is different.
Yeah.
And I tell you, whenever you stop, I've pretty much stopped watching the news.
Same.
I'd enjoy long form podcasts like this just because it's more nuanced. And I think that there's a lot of nuance out in the world. And that's also the thing that's where the fun's at, right? Mm-hmm. Is in the nuance.
Yeah. I had this conversation yesterday with James Kavanaugh, the guy I was telling you about in the green room that I've recorded with a couple times, and that there's a bell curve of people. And if you look at it politically, you have a center point of the bell curve. You have people that exist on the right side of it. You have people that exist on the left side of it. And as you get further out on the extremes, the numbers get smaller and smaller. Right. But that the majority of people that exist in the middle of that bell curve, if I'm on the right side of the curve, I have more in common with the people on the immediate left side of the curve than I do with people on the further extreme right side of the curve.
100%.
I share more in common with people that don't share the same opinions that I do exclusively.
Yep.
But our values are the same.
Yep.
And I can look at the real extreme viewpoints on my side of the aisle for whatever it is. It doesn't have to be political.
Yeah.
And call them crazy, just like somebody on the opposite end of the aisle can say the same about their extremes.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where most people live.
Because that's the everyday, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're a dad, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I care a whole lot more about raising my kids right, how happy my wife is, and what our faith as a family is than, what any celebrity's doing on any weekend or who they're dating or what color car they're driving or how big their yacht is.
Yeah.
That's not consequential.
Doesn't seem to be.
Shouldn't be.
Nor is it a thing to aspire to. I think that's probably a generational shift that, how old are you?
I'm 43.
43.
Yeah.
So you graduated college, what?
05.
05.
Yep.
Our generation being sort of that young Gen X, older millennial generation, I think is probably going to be the first to turn that corner on materialism since Great Depression era people. I think the Depression caused people to go into their foundational, like, physical needs mode.
Yep.
Using Maslow's hierarchy. And then each subsequent generation, things got a little bit easier and a little bit easier for. And then the millennial generation, this pivot happens where life is still easy certainly compared to Great Depression era life. Mm-hmm. But we're also realizing there's a lot of things that our parents and our grandparents held in high regard that we just don't give a shit about. I mean, there's a lot of those things for me that I don't think as much about what I'm driving, what the first impression of my house is, what I do for a living. It doesn't come up in conversation very often.
Yeah.
I think our generation might be the first that's true for.
Yeah. I think there's a I feel like it's a returning to the older generation's ideas in that we're inundated today with social media, and you want to talk about trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's on steroids. And I know I have a lot of friends that have just checked out of it because it's just too much. You can't keep up with it. And then, with things that are going on in public schools and in politics and with our country and there's a refocusing, it seems to me, on faith. We see it in our church. I hear it a whole lot more just daily conversations. People not scared of proclaiming their faith, which is great. And then, whatever that is. And it's also the simple things. I think that it's more of the good dinner. We try to sit down for dinner every night, if possible, as a family. And it's great for us because we're able to talk about the day. A lot of times, it's the kids' opportunity to tell me what they did during the day, and without any distractions. They're not running around in the front yard or the backyard or anything like that. It's us sitting to get down together as a family to say, hey, this is what we did today. And then I didn't realize this, but, they say that the Christian teaching is that the father is the head of the household. And the way that goes is where the family goes. And so part of sitting down to have dinner every night I say a blessing, and I don't always do it. I ask, Samuel or Joanna or Shannon to say it, or hey, what are you thankful for today? But Shannon told me probably 6 months ago. She goes, "It's really an insight into what it is that you're thinking about," which I never really thought about that. That all the things that happen during the day, the things that we think about as entrepreneurs or business people or whatever, I don't want to unload on her because it's, I don't want her to be stressed out about it. But also coming from those trials, you think about the things that you're appreciative of or that is actually, good and that moves the family forward in a direction, try to focus on that. And so it's interesting that that is insight into how the family's going and where my mind is, and it seems to be impactful for the family. So
that's a tough thing to navigate. I have a really tough time navigating the weight that I'm carrying professionally that obviously impacts the family because I'm the breadwinner and
right.
I bring home the financial provision for the company, and Ashton is there to manage it alongside me, and she manages everything from our front door inwards. That's sort of our deal.
Yep.
And it works really well. It's beautiful when it works well together in concert because it's not a 1+1 thing. It's additive, our efforts together. She is really, really good at not dumping her stress level on me. We homeschool both our boys, and she carries the lion's share of that weight, not to mention things in the house that she just keeps going without bringing me into them. So I feel on one hand a sense of obligation to not bring all my work baggage home and just dump it on her when I need a vent. I try to do that with friends or mentors or whatever. But the alternative to that is, or the flip side of that coin, if there's things going on in my professional life that are affecting my mood, which does happen, I want her to have the understanding of why that is and what's going on. And there's not a human being on the world that knows me better. And so when I have something to react to, there's real value in bringing her in on it and just giving her the backstory and then saying, hey, what do you make of this? What should I be doing? I had that happen recently with a situation you and I talked about in the green room, but when it's hard for me to wade through, what do I do in this circumstance? I need her as a sounding board sometimes.
For sure.
How are you sifting through what to take to your wife and bring her in on in your day-to-day versus what do I keep off of her shores?
Yeah, I probably tell her more than what she wants to hear.
You're an oversharer.
Yeah. Well, it's just I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm not very good about holding my cards. It's like we were talking about earlier. I believe in saying what you mean and just telling it like it is. And so, that I can probably overshare a little bit too much, but we talk about things during the day. I'm very fortunate. I have an office in the barn, so she brings me coffee in the morning.
Living the dream,
man,
dude.
I am.
Office in the barn with coffee delivered.
I know. And
my beautiful woman that you're married to.
That's right. I don't. I always say that I trapped her.
You trapped her.
Yeah. She just doesn't know it yet, but yeah. Very fortunate for that. And then, we talk about it after the kids get up from the table. She's like, hey, I can tell something's going on. What's going on? And, a lot of times you give her the high level and because we can get down into the nuance, and there's a lot of nuance in business and it takes too much time. And really at the end of the day, it's not important, because they're what's important. But I will say that, like you, I don't think anyone knows me better than Shannon does. And, it's like I tell her that I couldn't do what I do and be able to focus on it and be the breadwinner if it weren't for me knowing that everything that she's doing behind the scenes, how much work she's putting in. It's a team effort. Like you said, there's a beautiful, I would say, design to it. What happens outside of the house making the money we're really good at. Our brain is designed for it, and their brain is designed to be nurturing, be patient, all the things that I'm not very good at. So it's a beautiful team dynamic.
It's certainly the case in my marriage that's true.
Yep.
And it's, I guess, controversial to talk about biological differences in that way. But whether you take, I had this conversation, I think in here the other day, but whether you take an evolutionist vantage point of the world or a creationist vantage point of the world, we were either created to have biological differences that would have one set of the parents be wired to go and be protector and provider, and the other of the set of parents be wired for nurturing and care for young that in humanity require a lot of care in their first several years of life. So whether you were created that way or evolved that way, it still is an observable reality of the world. And it's not to say women can't be breadwinners or men can't be nurturing. That's too simplistic.
Correct.
Because you can be. But it is worth noting, when I feel the best about myself and the work that I'm doing and the struggles that I have to be able to find meaning in those things.
Yep.
And I find meaning in struggling to provide for my family that I wouldn't if I wasn't doing those hard things. Does that make sense?
It's 100% the hard thing.
It's just the reality of my life.
Yep.
It's a shame that that's controversial or hard to talk about, because I can't understand. I can't wrap my head around why that's become so controversial.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see it in my kids. I know you have two boys, but we have a boy and a girl. And
your girl's older?
She's younger.
Girl's younger.
Yep.
What age are they?
10, about to be 11, and 8, and just turned 8.
Okay. So exactly the same age as mine.
Yeah. And so Joanna, we didn't push her one way or the other, and she's just very much like her mom, very nurturing. And, where does that come from in a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, all the way to where she's at now? I think, again, that's by design.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's funny. I also thinking about generations and turning corners. My kids are interested in things that I was never interested in, but I'm interested in it now because they care about it, and we try to nurture that side of things. If Joanna's interested in piano, she's taking piano lessons now. Samuel's playing soccer. I didn't do either one of those things, but I think it's great for them. And whatever it is that they're interested in is what me and Shannon try to support them in.
First, talk about what you do for a living in a way that you would explain to somebody on an airplane. You got an hour with somebody, they say, "Oh, what do you do?"
Yep.
How do you explain it?
Okay. So I sell sporting goods in the outdoors industry. And the way that companies can go to market is they can have internal sales or they can have external sales. We are the external sales. We call on all accounts, distribution, big box, dealers, and we are the factory as far as setting up accounts. All sales programs, terms, discounts, and all that stuff are set by the factories, and then we go get placement. And so we only eat what we kill. If we sell product, we get paid. If we don't, we don't. So we are a variable cost that businesses are able to pay less if we're not selling as much, and they pay more when we're selling more. So, every business has its cycles, ups and down, and our pay is commensurate with that. And so it's our job to try to figure out how to gain more market share, how to try to level the cycles as much as possible, and really hammer down on any opportunities that come up during special buys, special times of the year, whenever there's a marketing opportunity or it's a certain season. You try to get as much placement as you can for items that are really going to move the needle.
Yeah. So your outdoor recreational activities, you have a specialty nested in there, or you just paint with a broad brush?
No, we specialize in firearms and optics and ammunition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when Willie introduced us, that was what he told me as a preview about you.
Yeah.
He was like, you probably don't know anybody in your life that knows firearms and optics better than this guy.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I'm always learning.
Yeah.
I'm always learning.
It's an ever evolving landscape.
It is. And that's, that's a pretty cool thing about our industry, and I see it in others. But the change in technology and what that's meant for raw materials, now you're able to use lighter materials that are stronger than what they were, however 40 or 50 years ago. And then engineering has allowed, projectile design, optics are so much better, light transmission, the technology, the accuracy. It's like I grew up duck hunting on the southeast coast of Texas across from Galveston. And my family always shot Remington 1100s. Well, we called them Jammingtons back then because, every fourth or fifth shell would jam. It would be like a failure to feed or failure to extract. And, now technology has changed so much that guys complain if they see a shell jam one every 100 or 500. So it's cool because at the end of the day, we have better products now than what we had 40 or 50 years ago. And that has allowed like kids to get into firearms at a younger age, with their parent supervision and all that good stuff. But it's made, 308s more accessible, for example. Or there's, back in 2020 and 2021, there was, and even back in 18 and 16, there was more younger urban and more single and affluent users that entered into the firearms market than ever in history. Millions.
2018 and then 2020 and 21.
Yep.
2020 and 21 makes sense, but why 2018? What happened then?
It was shootings and people being, concerned about politics and shooting. So you had a whole bunch of people in urban centers that went out and bought pistols for personal protection.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Would you say firearms is a passion of yours, or is it what you do for a living? What was the chicken and what was the egg?
I mean, it's definitely a passion because
It was a passion before it was a profession.
Oh, yeah. And I thought that I knew everything, but I didn't really know much of anything.
That's the way that
then.
goes.
Yep. Found out the hard way I didn't know anything, but that's good. Taught me a lot. Yeah, I grew up hunting and fishing from when I was 3 on up. Still have memories of falling asleep in a deer blind, my dad waking me up because he was about to shoot a deer, stuff like that.
Does it, because it's your passion, does it change your love for the sport because you're doing it professionally? When does it feel like a job?
Feels like a job when I do my taxes and when I when I have to reconcile expenses every month. It is, it's still a business. You look at a P&L statement or your balance sheet or credit card statement. That's the business side of it. But the fun side of it is we get to go to shoots and get to talk to guys about hunts and hopefully go on some good hunts and, then pass that on to Samuel and Joanna if she ever wants to do it. I also got Shannon into dove hunting. And
oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And we went hog hunting a couple times and, she enjoys eating the venison and the wild game just as much as I do.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
That's the entry point for a lot of people. And it was actually my re-entry point into hunting. I was raised, hunting is a loosely defined term.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
You're not always like in pursuit of the animal. You're kind of in the right place, right time. That you set up for it to be the right place, right time.
Yeah.
But my sort of return to it, I kind of got disinterested in it when I was probably, 14, 15. My return to it in my 20s was from a food angle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being able to take something that you harvest yourself and then you butcher yourself and then turn it into a thing that you're not not just eating it because you feel like it's the responsible thing to do, but you can actually make it into a thing that's really good, even for a sensitive palate.
Yep.
That's sort of the entry point for a lot of people, I think. But the intimidation around firearms is the thing that prevents people from doing it. So somebody with your particular skill set could probably get a person like Shannon into it just for your comfortability with the tools involved.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is a tool, right? It's not going to do anything by itself, just sitting on a shelf. So just like any other tool, like a saw or a grinder or a shredder, all those can be dangerous. You just got to learn how to use them the right way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is there's a lot of mysticism, I would say, around it and false information. They're all pretty simple. A lot of the designs have been around for a really long time. There's just been, modifications, improved technologies like we talked about earlier, but pretty much still the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a cartridge that has, powder in it that has a projectile and a primer, which is not very far off from a musket. And that's about it.
Yeah.
So that is what helped get Shannon into it. And then, that was before kids. We spent more time on preparing it. We did, had a really great dove season a couple of years in New Braunfels when we lived in Wimberley, and had a bunch of dove, and we made a potted meat, which was also pretty cool because it was like a history lesson.
Yeah.
This is how people preserved meat whenever they didn't have a refrigerator. And it tasted great, like clarified butter with dove breast that's been cooked in wine and rosemary and thyme, and you'd never know that it was dove.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It was awesome.
I had a guest in here. It's been a couple weeks ago. Jesse Griffiths, that is the chef owner at Daidue in Austin. You ever been to Daidue?
I haven't. I have a lot of friends that tell me I've got to go.
It's the place.
Yeah.
To me, it's the best restaurant in America for my particular taste, but certainly top shelf in the state of Texas.
Yep.
And his specialty is wild game cooking.
Yep.
And so much of the wild games, let's talk about doves specifically. You have dove balls on a grill, breast over jalapeno with cream cheese wrapped in bacon and grilled. Every dove I ate for the majority of my life was prepared that way.
Yeah.
But you talk to a guy like Jesse, and he can run you through the whole process from hunt to why you would prepare the meat the way that you do to maximize the yield that you get from that animal. And then the other pieces that you can take out of that animal that aren't necessary, like organs from a dove, you would typically throw in a gut pile, but not for a guy like Jesse. And so getting to talk to him about all the creativity around how to prepare them into a thing that you could serve to somebody with a super sensitive palate, and then get them to have a paradigm shift on the value of being able to go and do that for yourself. That's just cool. I like people that have that sort of inch wide and a mile deep passion in one thing. So your love for firearms is like that for me. Like I wish I had that passion for one thing. It would make my decisions easier.
Well, that's the funny thing is I really like it and I've got a passion for it. Then I love to fish. I love to. I'm getting back into golf. I love going to baseball games. Took Samuel to an A&M game a couple months back. That was great. And then spending time with family. I love to snow ski, hike. A lot of outdoors, and so I'd like whenever I'm gone for people to say that I was somewhat of a Renaissance man. And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Can we talk about what happened to you during COVID?
Sure.
This was the story that you told me over coffee that I thought, okay, there's a lot I admire in that. It was a weird time. And we may wade into controversial territory, and that's okay. But tell me the story of your personal and professional life in, say, early 2020.
So we moved to LaGrange to be closer to a large account because we were living in Wimberley at the time, and Shannon was pregnant with Samuel, and going from Wimberley to Houston was about 3.5 hours. So we moved to LaGrange because my mama and papa grew up or lived in Winnie. And so when I was growing up, I was out in the pasture all the time and had that freedom. And I love that freedom. And so me and Shannon had talked about it. Hey, when we have kids, whether that's in Wimberley or somewhere in the hill country, we're both from New Braunfels, maybe we should look at getting out in the country. Well, LaGrange presented that opportunity in a great way. We found a house on a hilltop, a ridge top overlooking a valley. We have a little bit of acreage. All of our other neighbors have large acreage. So it feels like we're in the middle of nowhere, and we are. And we love that. And everything's rocking along, rolling along. Great. Then COVID hits. And
when did you move to LaGrange? What year was that?
That would have been Samuel's 10. So that would have been in 16.
Okay.
Yep. And so, yeah, we'd have been there for 4 years. Hadn't started going to church there yet. I grew up Catholic, but then also attended Methodist and Baptist. So kind of all over the place. And then we move out there. Everything's going along great. And then COVID hits, and all of a sudden, we can't go call on accounts. Well, that's unprecedented. That's different. And, we were able to adapt and say, well, hey, we can do stuff on Teams calls. It's not the same. And then gun stores got designated as essential business. So I think, within a month, 2 months, started going back into gun shops. During that time, I was starting to do a lot of research into medical papers, which I've never done research into, but my degree's in economics, so I have a decent understanding of how to read studies and abstracts, and then what the conclusions are. And so everything that I found was saying basically the size of COVID-19 as a pathogen or whatever it is so small that no matter what kind of mask you're wearing, it's still going to get through. And then, it was one of those surreal moments. Like I remember seeing one of the planes fly into the Twin Towers, and had felt like a rhyme whenever I saw videos of people in China falling over, and they were saying, well, that's because of COVID. And then you start doing more research and you find out, well, hey, it's very small. And then I start hearing, well, it's really not as bad. It's more like a flu. And so during this time is whenever I start thinking about religion as well, and what is a true north? What is real, and what's the signal, and what's the noise?
That's why you started thinking about religion?
Yes.
Because of the distinction between true and false?
True and false. And I felt like as time went on, for about 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, well, we do need to stay at home. The more research I did, the more that I thought about it, everything didn't add up. And so I started thinking about what is the true north. And we hadn't gone to church, and me and Shannon said, well, hey, let's start going back to church. It's very important to us that we get the kids in there, because again, there needs to be a true north. And so then the church that the kids were in, thankfully the school that they were in, they didn't require masks. I went up there and talked to them about that. I was very passionate about that because of the research I had done on the efficacy of masks and basically the filtration down to the micron.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried to go to that church, and they wouldn't let people sit in the same pew row, and you had to bring your own seat cushions to the church. And I told Shannon, I just said, that just doesn't sound right. The 6 feet distancing doesn't sound right. And so we continued down that path, and we found a church that we're still at today, which is great. Silver lining, something great that came out of it. And then the idea was floated to me of, well, we know that you're not vaccinated. What's going to happen whenever you're forced to get vaccinated?
Yeah.
I basically said, I'm not going to get vaccinated. What about, and at this time, you had seen all the people in the armed forces basically asked to leave, forced out, doctors being fired at hospitals, nurses being fired at hospitals. And, I said, I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I did. And in hindsight, I think that people know that, hey, that wasn't the truth. That probably shouldn't have happened the way that it did. And I don't hold a grudge about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, people are trying to run their business and thinking about all different possibilities. And the other thing I think about this a lot, and I've got a lot of friends, and it could be just the bubble that I live in, but I do have a lot of friends that say, I will never be led astray like that again. Mm. And, I've thought about it a lot. I don't know what the telltale markers were. I know that caused, because it wasn't just me. It was other people that thought the same. I've got friends that, you talk about it now and they're like, yeah, I never got vaccinated either. So across the board, I would say whatever percentage of the population it is, there were people that reached the same conclusion that I did independently of each other. And I think that's wonderful and beautiful, and people following their own intuition and their own research. I think that's what makes us Americans. I think that's what makes Texans, that we have a wild streak because of the frontier people that came here. Mm. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
It answers the question, but it opens up a whole host of more questions that I'd want to ask you.
Of course.
And, remaining on potentially controversial territory I'm comfortable with. This is one of those things that, I know a lot of people that didn't get vaccinated. I know a lot of people that did. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that did for reasons that if I were in their circumstance, mm-hmm. man, I probably would have made the same call. Mm-hmm. It would have been tough. I was fortunate to be, first of all, the owner of a business that was remote. We were already remote. We'd been remote since 2017. We had very few circumstances where we had to send somebody in to a customer's office environment, and we tried to be delicate about if they had firm rules on protective equipment or vaccine status or whatever the case was. We just made our team aware, hey, if you're going to go into this environment, mm-hmm. these are the checklist of things that would apply here. And if you're not comfortable with it, share that with your leadership team, and we'll find somebody that can go and do that job. So I was fortunate to not be faced with a pressure point of like, you either do this or else. There's a lot of people that didn't make those calls when push came to shove, and now are having to reckon with that part of themselves that kind of caved on what they felt like should have been a principled stance in hindsight. What I think we lack culturally, this is a thing I haven't had to work my way through outwardly. I've only thought it in my head, so it'll be clunky, but this concept of making the right decision or making the wrong decision around something like vaccination from COVID, I think there has to be a maturing culturally beyond, not necessarily beyond right and wrong, because I do think there is objective truth and there's objective falsehood, and you need to be able to identify each one. But if there's not a period of grace given to somebody who made a decision that, now knowing what they know in hindsight, mm-hmm. they wouldn't have made, giving grace to that person and enough space for them to say, hey, yeah, I screwed that one up, and not get chastised for it, or, assumed that they would make bad decisions in the future. It's just going to continue this perpetual war between people that think, well, I was right about this and you were wrong, and therefore I'm superior to you in my decision-making abilities.
Yep.
Is that even possible? Or my Pollyanna?
I don't know that there's been a good opportunity for it. And I do think that today's society, there's too much, we're more about today. We're more about the next month than we are long term.
Mm.
And what makes me think about that is Joanna was sick during the ice storm that we had. And so we had the pediatrician that the kids were going to set an appointment. I get up there and I'm bringing my sick little girl into a doctor's office, just like I've done numerous times. Shannon's done the same thing, more than I have, but been up there, and I didn't wear a mask. And I'm not sick. My kids are sick. And if I'm, in my mind, if I'm okay with absorbing that risk, I'm not holding them accountable for it. And I'm here for my little girl, right? So we go in and they force me to put one on. Not by holding me down or anything, but basically we weren't going to have an appointment if I didn't put one on. So we go in and I start asking questions because she's my kid's pediatrician. And what I noticed, because I got a lot of pushback, she got very angry. Actually moved my kids to another doctor in her practice after this appointment. And I think that there's a locking in or a hubris attached to being an expert. And I think that there's lack of grace for remembering that we're all just people still. You might be a doctor. That doesn't mean that you know everything. I sell guns. I don't know everything about guns. You're in IT. You probably are still learning about different aspects of IT.
I definitely don't know anything about IT.
so, and it's like, that's the thing that, as we've gone back to church and you start reading the Bible from a older perspective. We were talking about being in your 20s and your 30s and then now in your 40s. We also watched The Chosen during that time. And for people that are visual learners like I am, it really ties the Bible together. But I feel like the Bible and Christianity is talking about basically being a father to a family. And here's what I recommend. And the giving grace is one thing that I continue to try to learn and be better at. And so I agree. And I've told Shannon, hey, there's some people that I want to talk to, and I would love to hear their perspective today versus what it was then. I don't know if I'll ever get that opportunity because I don't think a lot of those people are eager to have it.
It would require a significant amount of trust between that person and you for them to be vulnerable enough to say where they were wrong,
right,
or where you might have been right, to trust that you're not going to go and just mush them with "I told you so"s.
Yep.
But to me, what still feels like a culturally tense time that we're in now, so we're in May of 26, almost June of 26, still feels tense, like we're just on the brink of this whole republic shattering to pieces. Whatever the rebuild would be would have to start with that notion of whether you were wrong or I was right or vice versa. Truth matters, and we should start there. Grace matters, and that should be the immediate accompanying of the truth, for what it was, is that if you were wrong about something, okay, let's evaluate why. I can tell you times that I was wrong about things too and have to eat crow on those things, just like there's a whole bunch of people that would have to do that on this particular topic. But if it doesn't start with this notion of grace from a population of people that for this particular issue were right,
Right.
if that population is not resolved to give immediate grace for the people that were wrong in consideration of how tumultuous of a time it was, how controversial that topic was, how the concept of truth in general was, let's say, squirrely to begin with, right? Just because of where we were culturally.
Yep.
If it's not accompanied with those things, the goal of reconciling and having a country to live in of people that are united again, to me, it's just not even feasible. It's not possible.
I think that it also starts with holding people accountable. So I think the frustration and in some instances lack of grace is because people like Fauci don't want to admit that they did wrong, and I think the window for being able to do prosecute or anything like that is past, and I think that people in general are tired of not having the people that affect our lives held accountable. I think about this in terms of what my values are, and I assume that yours are as well. It's like we were talking in the green room, doing what you say, saying what you mean. I have a strong drive to make the wrongs that I've had in my life right and own up to it. One thing that I love about my wife is she's the exact same way. And so that's how we think. And I think that a lot of people assume that everyone else thinks the same as they do. So, because if it was something that if I was in his shoes, I would probably say, look, I understand that it was a big economic impact. I understand that a lot of lives were changed during this time. But the facts as we had them then aren't the same as what they are now. And we acknowledge that. I think that would go a long way. I don't see that coming, though.
Why? Why is that not possible? Instinctively, I think you're right. I think the chances of the leadership that was in place at that time acknowledging the obvious screw ups that happened during that time, I think it's almost zero that happens. But it does feel necessary.
I think the allegory of I can't remember who came up with the allegory, but the cave and the shadows on the wall.
Tell that I don't know it.
So there's 3 prisoners in a cave, and they are chained to the floor, and they can only see one wall, and the wall they see is shadows from people that are behind them with lit candles. So they see figures dancing on the wall. One of the prisoners escapes the cave one day, crawls out from under the ground, and gets up and sees the world for all its glory in the vivid color that it is: green grass, trees, wind blowing, sun. And he goes back into the cave to tell the other 2 prisoners, hey, there's this world out here that you guys aren't aware of, and it's gorgeous. You just got to crawl out of the cave. And they tell him that he's crazy. You don't know what reality is. This is our reality. And so I think that by admitting that they're wrong, or that they didn't have the facts right, or they didn't communicate the right facts, is a ceding of their power. The thing that I worry about with AI coming on board is, how is AI going to parse that in the next 10, 15, 20 years? If artificial general intelligence comes around, what do those courts, what do those trials look like?
Because the information it's pulling from is not easy to parse, or because it's colored with bad information?
That if it's colored with bad information, that's another. My understanding of it is that basically AGI would have access, and LLMs would have access to a lot more information that the general public does. So my assumption is that if it really looked at it, even though it, I've seen screenshots where they try to obfuscate from the subject, but it would know that there is handling missteps. And then what does it do with those people? And I'm hoping that we rein in and control, because then you're at the mercy. I mean, is that really any different than one political system if that runs everything instead of having two?
Yeah, and what's the result of it? And would you even trust what the robot told you was truth if you saw it?
Right. Look at all the AI generated videos that are out there now.
Yeah.
Getting harder and harder to tell which ones are which.
Yeah, that whole returning to that concept of being able to spot truth when you see it. That's again a squirrely topic, and it's a moving target because things change so quickly, and something that's not real can be made to look really real really quickly. But I do think that human beings' ability to spot truth and falsehood evolves as the technology evolves. We might be one step behind it, and if it evolves quickly, then you're going to miss a whole lot of stuff that's not real, and you just assume it is. But I think our ability to adapt to that is probably greater than we think, greater than we fear maybe.
Mm-hmm.
We fear that sort of intelligence or perceived intelligence can take over quickly and people will just wholesale believe it. There are people for whom that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That just give me the button and I'll push it and, be happy with it and do what it tells me to do. I don't think human beings at large are like that. This may be wading into Pollyanna, but I do think that we have an innate ability to spot something that's true or not true that would be hard to explain where it comes from. But that if you see something that you've seen a bunch and then it's tweaked, you can't always tell why your radar is going off, but your radar goes off. And the more familiar you get with that radar, the better you can spot something that's true or false. I'll give you an example. We had a picture of my sister-in-law that she gave to my oldest boy that sat on his dresser when we still lived in Austin. And when that picture was put there, I was walking through his room and I saw it kind of out of the corner of my eye. It was a good picture, just like a headshot. And I saw it and I thought, okay, I know who that picture is of, but that's not that person. And it was before I knew that Snapchat filters existed. And so she had applied a filter to that photo that just ever so subtly tweaked her facial features, made her eyes a little bit bigger, cheekbones a little bit bigger, kind of narrowed her face down towards her chin. If you knew Madeline distantly, if you had met her before, you would know, well, that was Madeline. Mm-hmm. If you knew Madeline really well, you'd spent a lot of time with her, you grew up around her, there would be something in the back of your mind that went, something's off about that picture. So there's something in human beings that exists that can tell the difference between something that's true and not, especially when you know what the ability is to manipulate. I don't know how well that scales in an environment where things change so quickly. But my hope is that as AI evolves and starts to take over more and more things and we give it more and more power, that we still maintain an understanding of what the capabilities are and how we can be led astray. Because I think that is a thing that the COVID era should have taught us as a population of people is we can be manipulated really easily, quickly.
Yeah, there's a meme out there. It's a person standing with their back to the viewer facing this crowd, and it's this sea of people. And the caption is, "Yes, I am right." And then below it says, "This is how I felt during COVID." Mm-hmm. And that's how it felt. I'm glad that we're through it. I'm glad that there's a lot of people coming out of it and saying, hey, again, we won't let this happen again. And I do think that AI adds a complexity to that as we go forward into the future. I know Joe Rogan's talked about having AI recreate him and his voice. And there's also people that have had, get phone calls from, they think they're their kids or their parents, and it's AI generating their voice. The same thing that runs through all those stories is everyone is still able to tell that it is still artificially generated.
Mm.
And, some nuanced way. And I hope that it remains that way.
What's your overwhelming sense of the future? Is it fear? Is it optimism? Is it uncertainty? Like when you think about the world that your kids are going to live in when they're 40, what did you say you are, 43?
Mm-hmm.
What's your sense of it?
Generally positive.
Okay.
But I believe the book is Only the Paranoid Survive. I can't remember who wrote it. It was the guy that I think founded IBM. I can't remember his name. But it talks about being paranoid in the way that you think about contingencies and trying to think about as many contingencies as you can. And so as the father of a family, I know that I've been much more guarded with my kids intentionally. That's why we're homeschooling the kids as well, controlling what goes into their brain and when it goes in. And so that paranoia and that intentionality, I don't think, again, we're unique. We live in a bubble, but there are more and more people that are choosing to do what both of our families are doing. And I think that, again, it's that being able to, that smell test, right? To be able to smell what's good and what's going to benefit in the future. And so with all that, that's why I'm optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic that not only is my family laying the groundwork for two people that I hope are going to be good people that follow Christ, that are productive. We always talk in our family about building each other up. I think that's another change over the last several generations that we can be much more intentional. I think that's a function of being able to live in wherever you choose, for the most part. I also think that's has to do with families choosing to try to spend more time with each other and maybe unplugging. And I think that there's more and more of that coming. So not only is it my family, but I'm seeing it as a trend across other families. And I think long form podcasts help with that because you can't have a 30-second, answer to a question, then get an immediate rebuttal that doesn't address the actual substance. I think what we're seeing in our generation is we're getting more substantive in our conversations, which is ironic considering that whenever you walk around or, you see people looking down on their phone, or in a restaurant, you see people looking at their phone, sitting at the same table together. I think that there is a cohort of our generation that's looking at that. And then I think the younger generation, that 18 to 20, there is going to be more and more people that look at it and say, hey, we need to go back to face, because, you're hearing about young men that don't have any social skills. And I do hold optimism that there is going to be a large awakening.
Yeah. This also came up in my conversation yesterday, but that the millennial generation is likely where the leadership through that whole shift will have to come from.
Mm-hmm.
We're sort of the bridge between the pre-digital era and post-digital era, where now things change so quickly. We kind of bridge that gap. The generation before us doesn't doesn't quite have the skill set, I think, to be able to bridge to a younger generation. The boomers and Generation X are pretty distantly removed from what is today Gen Alpha.
Yep.
That's going to scare a lot of people to think of a millennial being in a leadership position to be able to make critical decisions for the future of a republic. But I think it's where it comes from.
I think that we are in a fourth turning, and I think that our generation is the one that has to bridge the gap. The reason is I still remember living in a cul-de-sac, running around as a kid, 3 and 4, 5, going to my friend's house 3 or 4 houses down, parents saying, be back in, 3 or 4 hours. Not always adhering to that and having to come find me, but still being given that freedom and playing outside a lot. I still remember Oregon Trail when it was on a floppy disk, and you had computer lab. That was, you went to the computers. I didn't get my first phone till I was 18, graduated high school and leaving for college. And there was only nighttime minutes and weekend minutes. During the day it was more expensive. So I think that our generation has both, like you said, we bridge the gap because we have one foot in each of the epochs, or the technology, non-technology, and I think that our generation, I think we are at the tip of the spear because we do have kids and we have families where that's the reversion back to the older generation because we did live it. And I let my kids go outside and play. Like, I want them outside. We limit how much they can do with video games. We limit how much they can watch YouTube or TV. And we already see the downsides of them watching YouTube because, in reality, everything's an advertisement. Everything's branded. They don't know that. They can't comprehend that. The conversation of, why does this, 26-year-old have a $400 Lego set that he's putting together? Well, I want that. You can't have that. Well, why not? Well, it's $400. Well, how did he get it? Well, it probably got sent to him. Well, how does that work? So I think that it's our job to guide that younger generation. And then there's going to be the gap of the younger professionals behind us that they didn't live it the same way that we did. And how are we going to teach that to them?
Yeah. To the point that you made earlier, all of those things are tools.
Right.
And they can be used or they can be misused. The best thing you could do is prepare your kids to understand the right way to use the tool and what it looks like when it goes off the rails so they can spot it in themselves. Because if I give a phone to my kid and he doesn't have those capabilities built, he's going to make a lot of stupid decisions that are going to consume a lot of his time and energy and efforts and all those things on something that's ultimately not real. So, there's people that I would say exist on our side of things that would want to build a real tidy bubble around their kids for fear of what will happen when they get introduced to the real world. And the best thing to do is to just keep them tidy. And in my life experience, that's not the move.
Yep.
Because the moment that kid gets out of your house, they have zero skill set built.
Yep.
To be able to make decisions for themselves. And you see a lot of people that go off rails when that happens. So, yeah, I mean, whatever the future holds there, it will require leaders who can speak truth to crowds of people that they know disagree with them, but who can also have the grace to allow for somebody to be wrong and to forgive and to evaluate why bad decisions were made and then shepherd people that they're responsible for through that whole process of navigating it. I don't know, man. It'll take people being willing to talk publicly in long form and risk being wrong publicly.
Yep.
I think we're developing that now. I believe, like you do, in the podcast medium. I mean, obviously I'm spending time and money doing stuff like this for almost no audience, but I do think it's important. I think it's important to be able to admit where you were wrong about things. You know, I do that a lot. I do it a lot publicly in this format, and it's uncomfortable to do.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's important. So for what that's worth, man, I've appreciated the time. Getting to know you a little bit has been fun. There's several things in here that I had seen either in our previous conversations or things that I'd just seen about you in your profile that I would have wanted to talk about, but this ended up being better than everything I had written down, which is usually the case. This is why I told you I'm not an interviewer, because I might have an idea of where I would want the conversation to go, but the moment the door closes there, it shifts. So,
well, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
It's been
dude,
an honor.
this was good. We'll do it again.
Appreciate it.
All right, man.